Have you ever heard of a war that was a dress rehearsal for an even bigger, more catastrophic conflict? A war where ideologies clashed so violently that it pulled in volunteers from all over the world, while the great powers just stood by and watched? Today, we're diving deep into the story of the Spanish Civil War, a conflict that wasn't just about Spain, but about the very soul of Europe in the 1930s. Let's rewind to the early 20th century. Spain was a nation of stark contrasts. On one side, you had a powerful, elite, wealthy landowners, the influential Catholic Church, and a proud military establishment. On the other, the vast majority of the population impoverished peasants, toiling on land they didn't own, and factory workers in the cities facing grim conditions and unemployment. This wasn't just a gap, it was a chasm. The air was thick with tension and a growing desire for change. In 1931, that change seemed to arrive. The monarchy was abolished, and the Second Spanish Republic was born. It was a beacon of hope for many, ushering in a wave of progressive reforms. The government started redistributing land to the poor, introduced secular education to break the church's hold on schools, and granted women new rights, including the right to vote. For liberals and the working class, it felt like the dawn of a new era. But for every person who celebrated, another was filled with anger and fear. The conservative elite saw these reforms as an attack on their traditions, their wealth, and their way of life. The Catholic Church bristled at losing its privileged position in society, and many in the army, who saw themselves as the guardians of Spanish honor, viewed the Republic's leaders as weak and dangerous. This deep division quickly spiraled into extreme political polarization. Society split into two warring camps. On the left, you had the Republicans, a diverse coalition of socialists, communists, and even anarchists, all united in their support for the Republic. On the right, you had the nationalists, a mix of conservatives, monarchists who wanted the king back, and a rising fascist movement inspired by Mussolini's Italy and Hitler's Germany. The political climate grew toxic. Streets became battlegrounds for rival factions. Political assassinations and violent strikes became tragically common. Spain was a powder keg, and everyone was just waiting for a spark. That spark came in February 1936. A general election was held, and the Popular Front, a broad alliance of leftist parties, secured a narrow victory. For the left, it was a democratic triumph, but for the right, it was the final straw. They saw it not as a legitimate transfer of power, but as a path to a full-blown communist revolution. They believed democracy had failed and that only force could save Spain. In the shadows, conservative generals began to plot, convinced that a military coup was the only answer. The plot exploded into reality on July 17, 1936. From the Spanish-controlled territory of Morocco, army officers led by an ambitious general named Francisco Franco launched their rebellion. The plan was a swift takeover. Army units across Spain rose up against the democratically elected government. The coup was a mixed success. The rebels quickly seized control in conservative rural areas like Seville and much of the north. But in the major industrial cities, the heartlands of the Republic like Madrid and Barcelona, the people fought back. Workers, students, and loyal police officers took to the streets, armed themselves, and fiercely resisted the military uprising. The quick coup had failed. Instead of a swift victory, Spain was torn in two. On one side were the nationalists, led by Franco. They were supported by the army, the church, the landowners, and all those who feared the Republic's progressive vision. They flew the old monarchist flag and framed their fight as a holy crusade to restore order, tradition, and religion. On the other side were the Republicans, or Loyalists, who fought to defend the legitimate government. Their ranks were filled with a passionate but chaotic mix of socialists, communists, anarchists, liberals, and regional separatists. They were united by their opposition to fascism, but deeply divided on what kind of society they wanted to build. The initial days were pure chaos. With the official army split, both sides scrambled to form militias. Ordinary people, factory workers, farm laborers, writers, and artists picked up whatever weapons they could find. A brutal civil war had begun. This wasn't a clean fight between two armies. It was messy and horrifying. Reprisals were common. In nationalist-held territory, thousands of suspected leftists were rounded up and executed. In Republican zones, radical factions attacked the clergy, burning churches and killing priests and nuns in a wave of anti-clerical violence. The initial idealism on both sides was quickly drowned in a sea of blood. But this was never just a Spanish affair. The conflict quickly became a proxy war for the great powers of Europe. Franco knew he needed help to win, and he found eager allies in Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. Hitler and Mussolini saw Spain as the perfect testing ground for their new military doctrines and equipment. Hitler sent the infamous Condor Legion, a unit of the German Air Force. They practiced dive-bombing tactics that would later be used across Europe, most notoriously in the bombing of the Basque town of Guernica. Mussolini sent over 70,000 ground troops, along with tanks and planes. This massive foreign intervention gave Franco a decisive military advantage. The Republic, desperate for aid, looked to the world for help. Their pleas were largely met with silence. The Soviet Union under Stalin was the only major power to provide substantial support, sending tanks, aircraft, and military advisors. But this aid came at a price, increasing the influence of the Spanish Communist Party and creating deep divisions within the Republican camp. The Republic also received help from one of the most remarkable movements of the 20th century, the International Brigades. Over 35,000 volunteers from more than 50 countries, men and women who believed they had to make a stand against fascism, traveled to Spain to fight. They included famous writers like George Orwell and Ernest Hemingway, whose experiences would shape their most powerful works. So, where were the world's great democracies? Britain, France, and the United States chose a policy of non-intervention. They were haunted by the memory of World War I and terrified that getting involved in Spain would ignite a wider European war with Germany and Italy. So they set up a committee and declared an arms embargo on both sides. But this policy was a farce. While the democracies stood by, Germany and Italy openly violated the agreement, pouring weapons and men into Franco's camp. The non-intervention policy, intended to contain the conflict, ended up strangling the legitimate Republican government while allowing the fascists to arm their ally. It was a tragic failure of international diplomacy that emboldened Hitler and showed him that the West lacked the will to stand up to aggression. The war was a brutal testing ground, not just for weapons, but for ideologies, fascism, communism, democracy, and anarchism, all clashing on the battlefields of Spain. For 3 years, the world watched as Spain bled. By 1939, after immense bloodshed and suffering, Franco's forces emerged victorious. The Republic was crushed, and a dictatorship was established that would last for nearly 40 years. The Spanish Civil War was over, but its lessons were chilling. It demonstrated the brutal effectiveness of modern warfare, the dangers of political polarization, and the catastrophic consequences of international indifference. Just 5 months after the fall of Madrid, Hitler invaded Poland, and the world was plunged into the Second World War, the very conflict the West had hoped to avoid. The dress rehearsal was over, and the main event was about to begin. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into a pivotal, yet often overlooked, chapter of history. If you found this story as fascinating and important as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. Let me know in the comments what you think was non-intervention the right policy. See you next time.